welcome to Absolute Beginner for Maya 2016 Series 3. In this tutorial we're going to talk about the parts that make up a polygonal object. At this point we want to break down the polygonal object and see the parts it's made out of, and those things are called components. So let's take a look at this Polygon Sphere, and if I right click on the sphere I get a hotbox menu, and this has several labels here. We are currently already in object mode, and that's, we can move and scale and rotate the whole object. If I select an edge, I'm now selecting a part or a vertex or a face. But the first one I want to talk about is the vertex. And a vertex are the points that make up this polygonal mesh. And if you connect two vertices, you get an edge. Now these vertices can be controlled just like an object can. They can be moved. For example, I select that and I hit the W move tool and I can move that vertice. I can select multiple, shift click. Now that I have two selected, I could rotate or even scale them together. I hit R and I could scale them really close to one another. So the same operations that we could do with an object as far as smooth, scale, and rotate, we can begin to do at a component level. And that's where we really begin to transform this mesh. You may have seen in the menu set or create, you have NURBS primitives. Now NURBS are created with different math, and they'll have different components than the Polygon primitive. So just know that when I'm talking about vertices, edges, and faces, that I'm referring to polygonal primitive components, and that these work entirely different. So that we know how to select those. Like I said, right click and you can choose the edge, the vertex, or the face. There is a multi here as well. Multi means I'm wanting to select these three, and it just kind of depends on which. If I'm kind of in the center of the face, it's going to select the face. If I get close to an edge, it's going to select an edge. If I get close to a vertex, it's going to select a vertex. And in these few icons on the top, if I click the one with the hammer, it brings up my move settings. There's a couple of important things you need to understand when you begin to model on a component level. And you've seen the manipulator for move, scale, and rotate. And what I want to talk about, what determines which way this arrow points. And to understand that, you have to understand the different coordinate spaces that exist in Maya. Now the first coordinate space I want to talk about is your world space. So I've opened up the tool settings. I'm within the move tool, and it says axis orientation, and it says world. Well, that corresponds to the axes that are shown here in the left corner. So if I pull forward, that's the X direction. If I pull up, it's the Y. I'm going to grab a few vertices and I'm going to pull those out. Okay. Alright, now I want to change this to object space. Now I turn to object space and it looks exactly the same. The red's going forward in X, but now I want to rotate this, and now when I hit the move key, this is pointed in this what was at first the X direction. So now I'm moving things in object space, which they're relative to the object themselves, and there's usually a front side and a top and a left and right to your object, and it has its own space, and it will depend on how you set that up in the beginning, but I made this nose in the positive X direction, which is the front. Alright, I'm going to create another object here, and I'm going to parent this object to the comb, shift select, and then hit P. So now when I move this, It moves this object, but the child can move independent. But once the parent is selected, it moves. But I parent that to show you another one of these options here. So now I'm going to take this, I'm going to rotate this cone a little bit. So let's go back to the world. This lines up with the world axes. However, I did rotate it, so if I do object, you can see that these axes are angled differently. And if I select this one, its object X is pointing this way. I want to go down one more, and no, two more, to parent. Now when I select the parent, then these manipulators, the arrows point in the direction of the parents. So you see how that's so go into the parents object and see how it's pointed. That's how this is going to be pointed if I have it selected to parent. Component mode has to do with if I select this face, all the others still apply. I can move this in world space or parent space as I have it now. I can move it in world, or I can move it in parent. But component space will take that face and create a perpendicular line in the center known as a normal, and that the X direction will be there. So this will pull perpendicular at an angle 90 degrees from that face. So somewhere down here it's going to be angled there, and something down here it's going to start angled down. And you see, moving on, I want to show you the modeling toolkit as well. Also up here with these buttons you have the tool settings and the modeling toolkit. Now I showed you how you can right click and select components. The modeling toolkit also has a place where you can select by object, and this is by vertex, this is by edge, this is by face. Okay. Also there's a few really neat I'm going to frame here. Selection modes. By default it's pick marquee, and that's where you go and you click and you click, and you can shift click, and you can if I shift click again it kind of toggles on and off. But I wanted to show you the drag select. So when it's dragging, I can just hold down and click, and when I release it, it shows everything I've selected. Sometimes that can be much faster than clicking. I can just hold down and select. That's how you begin to manipulate these components. You select, and you still use the move, scale, and rotate. And in the next video I want to show you a couple other things here. One has to do with soft selection, and the other is about reflection, and we'll continue to explore, now that we know how to select and move these components, what more you can do with them. See you in the next video.